The day I found the letter, the house was quieter than it had ever been, as if even the walls were holding their breath. 3 weeks had passed since my wife, Eleanor, was buried under the old oak tree at the edge of the cemetery she used to admire on our evening walks. 3 weeks of condolences, casseroles, and forced strength. That morning, for the first time, I was alone with my grief. No visitors. No ringing phone. Just silence and dust motes drifting through the sunlight. I wasn't looking for anything important. I was simply trying to survive the day. I opened drawers she once organized with loving precision, touching objects that still carried her scent. Her scarf. Her reading glasses. A half-used bottle of lavender lotion. Each item felt heavier than it should have, like it carried a piece of her soul. Then I opened the bottom drawer of her bedside table. Beneath old notebooks and a stack of birthday cards was a plain white envelope with my name written on it. My full name, the way she only wrote it when something truly mattered. My hands began to shake before I even opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly, as if she wanted to make sure I'd open it slowly. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to tell you in person. Please forgive me for that. I love you more than words can hold. But you must listen carefully now. Do not trust our sons. No matter what they say. No matter how convincing they sound. Promise me you'll be careful. I read it 3 times, my mind refusing to accept the words. Don't trust our sons. Mark and Daniel. The boys we raised together. The children whose scraped knees I kissed, whose bedtime stories she read, whose graduations we cried through together. My first reaction was anger. Grief does strange things, and I told myself this was another cruel trick of loss. Eleanor had been ill. Maybe her pain medication had confused her. Maybe fear had twisted her thoughts. But Eleanor was never careless with words. She was calm, thoughtful, logical, and she loved our sons fiercely. Why would she write this? I sank onto the bed, staring at the letter as if it might explain itself. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and denial. I wanted to tear it up, to pretend I'd never seen it. Yet something deep inside me whispered that ignoring it would be a mistake I'd never forgive myself for. That same evening, Mark called. "Dad," he said softly, his voice warm and familiar. "How are you holding up?" I almost told him about the letter. The words climbed up my throat, desperate to escape. But the memory of Eleanor's handwriting stopped me. "I'm managing," I replied. "Just trying to keep busy." "We were thinking," he continued, "Daniel and I, that maybe it's time to talk about the house. It's a lot for you to handle alone." The house. Eleanor's garden. The walls that echoed with laughter and arguments and ordinary life. My chest tightened. "It's only been a few weeks," I said carefully. "I know," Mark replied quickly. "We don't want to rush you. We just want to help." Help. Such an innocent word. Yet as I hung up the phone, the letter felt heavier in my pocket, like a warning siren that wouldn't shut off. Later that night, Daniel sent a message. He suggested hiring a financial advisor. Said he'd already spoken to someone trustworthy. Said it was for my own good. They were being thoughtful, responsible, exactly how good sons should be. So why did Eleanor's words keep echoing in my head? Sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake replaying moments from the past, searching for signs I might have missed. Arguments whispered behind closed doors. Quick glances exchanged between the boys when money was mentioned. Eleanor insisting on handling certain accounts herself. Had I been blind? The next morning, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I unlocked Eleanor's small home office, a room she rarely let anyone touch. Inside, everything was perfectly arranged. Files labeled in her neat handwriting. A laptop tucked away in a drawer. I hesitated before turning it on, guilt washing over me. But the letter had changed something. It had planted a seed of doubt that demanded answers. What I found didn't make sense at first. Bank statements I didn't recognize. A savings account opened under Eleanor's name alone. Large transfers marked with vague descriptions. Dates that lined up with moments when our sons had business opportunities or temporary setbacks. My heart sank as pieces slowly began to connect. This wasn't proof. Not yet. But it was enough to make my hands tremble. As if summoned by my thoughts, the doorbell rang. Mark stood outside, smiling, holding a bag of groceries. "Thought I'd surprise you," he said. "You shouldn't be alone today." For a brief moment, I wanted to hug him and let everything go, to choose comfort over truth. But as he stepped inside, his eyes flicked toward the hallway that led to Eleanor's office.
Just for a second. It was a small thing.
So small most people wouldn't notice. But I noticed. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if the woman I trusted more than anyone had been protecting me all along, and if the people I loved most might be the ones I needed to fear. That night, I placed the letter back in the envelope and hid it where no one would think to look. I realized then that Eleanor hadn't just left me a goodbye. She had left me a mission. And whatever truth waited ahead, I knew one thing for certain. My life and my family would never be the same again.
I didn't sleep that night.
I lay in bed listening to every creak of the house, every shift of air, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. Eleanor's letter burned in my thoughts. By morning, grief had hardened into something sharper: resolve. If she had gone to the trouble of warning me, then whatever she feared was real, and I owed it to her to see it through. Over the next few days, I played the role everyone expected: the grieving father, the tired widower. I accepted Mark's grocery runs and Daniel's helpful phone calls. I nodded when they talked about finances and nodded again when they spoke about the future. Inside, I was watching everything. The way they avoided certain topics. The way their kindness always circled back to money, paperwork, signatures. Late one afternoon, Daniel came over with a folder. "Just some documents," he said casually. "Nothing urgent. We can go over them whenever you're ready." I took the folder and set it aside without opening it. "Leave it here," I said. "I'll look when my head's clearer." A flicker crossed his face. Disappointment, quickly masked by a smile. "Of course, Dad. No pressure." That night, after he left, I opened the folder. It was worse than I expected. Power of attorney papers. Property transfer drafts. Forms that would quietly hand over control of nearly everything Eleanor and I had built. Nothing illegal. Nothing obvious. Just a series of perfectly reasonable steps that, together, would leave me with very little say. My hands shook as I closed the folder. Eleanor had known. Somehow, she had seen this coming. I went back to her office and dug deeper. Hidden behind a row of old cookbooks, I found a flash drive taped under a shelf. My heart raced as I plugged it into her laptop. Inside were scanned emails, recorded phone calls, spreadsheets tracking money movements. She had been documenting everything. The truth unfolded slowly, painfully. Mark and Daniel had debts. Big ones. Failed investments they never told us about. They had come to Eleanor first, asking for help. She had given them some money, believing they'd recover. When the losses grew, so did their desperation. They started moving funds without telling me, counting on Eleanor's trust and my ignorance. What chilled me most wasn't the money. It was the tone of the messages. Impatient, entitled, as if what we had was already theirs. Eleanor had confronted them. One recording captured her calm but firm voice, telling them she wouldn't give them another cent without honesty. Another recording followed weeks later. Her voice sounded tired, but determined. She told them she had secured the remaining assets and put safeguards in place. That was when everything made sense. Her sudden insistence on handling finances alone. Her quiet anxiety. Even her final days, when she kept telling me I'd be okay, in a way that felt like reassurance and apology all at once. A knock at the door pulled me back to the present. Both of them stood there this time. Mark and Daniel. Side by side. "We need to talk," Mark said. I invited them in and sat across from them at the dining table where Eleanor once planned holidays and birthdays. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. They didn't waste time. They spoke about responsibility, about family, about how stress wasn't good for my health. Daniel slid the folder back toward me. "We really think you should sign these soon." I looked at my sons. Really looked at them. The familiar faces I'd trusted my entire life, now felt strangely distant. I know about the accounts, I said quietly. All of them. Silence fell like a dropped plate. Mark's jaw tightened. Daniel's eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. You went through Mom's things? Daniel asked, his tone sharp. I listened to her, I replied. Something you both chose not to do. The excuses came fast. They talked over each other. Bad luck. Temporary mistakes. Pressure. They said they were going to tell me eventually. They said they were just trying to protect the family. I stood up. She protected me, I said. From this. For the first time, I saw fear on their faces. Real fear. Not of losing money, but of being exposed. I told them about the safeguards Eleanor had set. The accounts they couldn't touch. The lawyer she had consulted. I didn't mention the recordings. Not yet. Mark's voice broke.
Dad, please.
We can fix this. I believed him. In a way. But belief wasn't enough anymore. You'll fix it by being honest, I said. Starting now. No more pressure. No more documents. And no more pretending this was for my good. They left without another word. The next morning, I met with Eleanor's lawyer. A kind woman who seemed unsurprised by everything I told her. She confirmed what Eleanor had done. She had anticipated resistance. She had planned for it. As I walked out of the office, the weight on my chest finally shifted. Grief was still there. So was disappointment. But there was also clarity. That evening, I sat alone in the living room, holding the letter one last time. I understood now why Eleanor hadn't trusted our sons. Not because she didn't love them, but because she knew love sometimes wasn't enough to stop people from crossing lines they shouldn't. I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside her photo. She had been right. And, because of her, I wasn't broken. I was warned.